Hi, and welcome back to the North Lodge Cottage Garden. I'm Gardener Ben, and it's been a while since I brought you a collection of video. As you know, the weather here in the UK has been blisteringly hot, and bringing you videos such as this has been really hard work. Everything in the garden has really struggled. But this collection of roses that I have in front of me is made up of 9 roses, 2 of which are doubled up. So I have 11 to talk to you about today. And the collection I've generated for you today is my best of selection if you're looking at creating and copying that beautiful cottage garden style that I have here at North Lodge. Now, a lot of people will grow roses and only roses, and that makes me very, very different from a lot of rose growers. Not only do I only grow David Austin roses, I have no other roses in the garden whatsoever, but my collection of well over 100 different types of David Austin roses are heavily planted with a cottage garden style. Lots of perennials, lots of bulbs, lots of flowering annuals, making it an absolute riot of colour all the way through the year. And some of the varieties of David Austin rose are much better and lend themselves to that style better than others. And a lot of you are always asking me, how do we generate the style that you've got at North Lodge, and how do you pack in so many plants, and what gives you that lovely whimsical soft fairy tale feeling to the garden, which literally exuberates and billows colour and softness and sort of froths everywhere. So the collection of roses that I have in front of you, today, are the ones that I think if you are creating a cottage garden style that you really must have. So let's kick off with a couple of pairings first, because I have to say a couple of these are actually in pairs, and the first of those are 2 sister roses. The first of which is Harlow Carr, which is the pink one just here, producing lovely, beautiful, true pink flowers, very highly scented. This particular rose, as I've talked about on several occasions, is really useful in the garden. It will take all sorts of punishment. An exposed site with salt winds, this particular rose will flower really well, and is fantastic for planting a very spiky but very beautiful boundary hedge. So this one is Harlow Carr. Its sister rose, which many of you will know from my top 20 video this year, which is the Country Parson. Very identically similar to Harlow Carr, but yellow. I wanted to pick another one of these today, but I couldn't actually reach it on the plant. This one in the sunlight actually bleaches out almost to a pure cream white. So you can see now the temperatures have dropped off quite ever so slightly. Let's lift that one out and forward for you. The Country Parson is a really lovely sherbet yellow colour. Again, a really heavily scented rose, which is beautiful for creating that lovely, soft, exuberant cottage garden style where you want things to sort of ramble around and sort of mix in well with each other. So the first two, a pair of sisters, is Harlow Carr and the Country Parson. A big, bold and beautiful rose up for you next, which appears in several of my best of collections. This one is Royal Jubilee, a stunning pink rose. I'll bring it forward to the camera for you there. A stunning pink rose creating large goblet or chalice shaped flowers, very similar to the shaped flower that you'll have with Jude the Obscure or with Woollerton Old Hall. Many of you asking me to review roses with this lovely goblet shape, wanting to know more about the roses with these lovely deep, bold, peony shaped flowers. But this one is Royal Jubilee, fantastic for creating that soft and billowing feeling. Plant it at the back of a border where it's going to reach between 4.5 and 5 feet high, and I just let mine ramble about and poke its lovely big chalice shaped flowers out here and there. So a fabulous rose for really softening things up. This one is Royal Jubilee. These are of course in no particular order, so these aren't a ranking of must-haves, these are just a collection all brought together. Now, a lot of you struggle with this particular rose, and I apologise because this is not a particularly fantastic actual flower itself, obviously because of the heat, but I wanted to bring you this one, rumoured to be one of the best roses that David Austin have ever bred. Now, I do love it, but a lot of you will struggle with the particular styling of this one. It is very floppy, and from that description many of you would have already guessed that this is Olivia Rose Austin, a beautiful flat shaped pink rose which opens completely flat into a saucer shape. The blooms themselves do nod quite a lot, so if you're really looking at really relaxing that style and adding that informal look to the garden, Olivia Rose Austin is a fantastic free flowering shrub rose, reaching around 3.5 to 4 feet high. It's really, really good for creating a low informal hedge like we have at my English wall garden, where it's planted all the way along the front of the house, or in the front of a border where it really, really does flop. It's going to need a little bit of support, but Olivia Rose Austin, for adding that sense of whimsy and cottage garden style, is a fabulous rose. A rose now that I think no garden, depending on whatever your planting style, should be without. The beautiful one just here, the crimson red, is obviously Munstead wood. This one makes it onto the cottage garden style, mainly on not only that wonderful, powerful colour, but also its amazing fragrance, smelling wonderfully of black currants and raspberries and summer fruits. Munstead wood is a fantastic rose for adding a little bit of a punch. Now, most of you will know that a lot of the cottage garden style plants are very, very pale in colour. Planted en masse, we're talking about lots of pale yellow, pale white, pale blues. Sometimes it's nice to have a real strong pop of colour, which is where the likes of Munstead wood really, really do sing. A really big shrub for planting at the back of a border and adding something to give you a little bit of a backdrop, and something to also draw you towards a border because of its wonderful fragrance. So Munstead wood should, in my opinion, be in absolutely every garden, no matter what your style. It should fit in absolutely everywhere. A rose not many of you talk about down in front of me, and a small rose, a really, really useful one for planting in small spaces if you are limited with how much space you have. This Apricot Beauty is Grace, a very, very distinguished shaped flower, producing these lovely pointed petals which give it a lovely star-shaped look to the actual bloom itself. A really, really happy looking rose, and I know that's quite a strange thing to say, but it really is a cheerful little soul. A beautiful colour which bleaches out ever so slightly on the outer petals, I say, with that very, very distinctive point to the outer edge which give it that wonderful star shape. Again, like Olivia Rose Austin, the blooms tend to nod ever so slightly, giving it a very relaxed feel. It reaches only 3 to 3.5 feet high, so it is perfect for growing in a pot if you're trying to create this look on a patio or a balcony. But a Grace is a really useful rose for planting right at the very, very foreground of a border, only reaching say 3 to 3.5 feet. It's a fabulous little rose for really, really changing the style. A rose, again, many of you will struggle with, but one I really, really love. A lovely informal floppy lady. This one is the Lady Salisbury, a really beautiful, very, very soft, true pink rose. I'm going to bring that right forwards to the camera for you, with very, very deeply ruffled petals. This one, again, does tend to flop a little bit. It's going to need a little bit of support, but it does sort of ramble about. Again, a small rose for the front of a border or for a pot, only reaching 3 to 3.5 feet. It has this lovely, beautiful flick off the top of the bud, very, very much like Anne Boleyn, which you could include in this collection as well, but I don't have a bloom to bring for you today. But this is the Lady Salisbury, and it's really here because of its beautiful colour. I say that lovely, really, really beautiful, soft pink colour is absolutely stunning. A rose which you're going to get bored of me talking about all the time, an absolute belter from the David Austin collections. Again, not the best bloom. This rose should be in absolutely everybody's garden. Doesn't matter how you're growing it, where you're growing it, whether you're growing it in a pot or whether you're growing it in the ground. This is Princess Anne from David Austin. An absolutely stunning rose, which is going to flower and flower and flower. And I use this as a backdrop across the garden in many places. I think I might have 4, possibly 5 of the print of Princess Anne dotted here and there about in the garden. A really, really useful rose for planting alongside your cottage garden perennials to really, really relax the style. This one is beautiful if you don't deadhead it until really late. I've talked in several videos, including its own personal review, about how this rose really ages beautifully, going from this lovely strong pink with its heart-shaped petals and that lovely little yellow edge right down in the center of the bloom, aging to a magenta blue just before the petals drop. It ages absolutely beautifully in the most graceful way. So again, fantastic for adding to this particular style and adding where you want petals to be sort of drifting about and falling on the floor. This one is Princess Anne. Doubling up because we ran out of vases. This one is a beautiful rose, adding on, been fully reviewed by myself this year. This is Tottering by Gently. I don't have its counterpart to bring you today, but also added to this list is Kew Gardens, another single flowering rose from David Austin Roses, which both produce large mound forming bushes around 4 to 5 feet high and about 4 to 5 feet wide. Really large dome shaped flowers, bushes with absolutely smothered in beautiful flowers. Fantastic for pollinators. I'm really keen on both of these roses, so making it into my relaxed style for the cottage garden style is Tottering by Gently, which is the yellow one, and also available in pure white, which is the Kew Gardens. Last but by no means least, as I say, this is not a ranked video. These aren't brought to you in a certain or particular order. This rose I absolutely adore, and like Princess Anne, I have it planted all over the garden for many different reasons, but this is the stunning semi-double Lark Ascending. Another really large rose, perfect for planting if you're trying to grow a boundary hedge or an informal boundary, reaching 5 to 6 feet once established. It really is a large plant. But this one I also plant in the middle of borders and also towards the back, where it adds an awful lot of height and an awful lot of drama. You can see it's a beautiful apricot colour, radiating colour from the very centre of that flower. It is absolutely stunning. Produces really good hips, so a good an all-round interest plant for towards the back end of the season, but also in these high summer months, just as we start to head past the longest day, which we are now, we're well into July now, the light frequency changes ever so slightly and you're starting to bring in much more red and blue light frequencies, which in the late evening and early evening sunlight, with this rose standing tall at the back of your border catching that sunlight, it is absolutely stunning. So this is the Lark Ascending. Now that concludes the top 9 of the cottage garden plants that I'd like to bring you. But if you're trying to add that wonderful whimsical cottage gardens feel to any particular garden, whether it's new or old, large or small, please don't forget that every single one of the roses in front of me, all the 11 that I've talked to you about today, have their full and own personal rose reviews, brought to you by myself either in 2021 or some of them from this year in 2022. So do go and watch those, all available for you to watch on YouTube or on my Instagram channel. If there's a rose that you'd like me to talk to you about and you can't find a video for you, do drop me a message or just at me in a comment somewhere and I will point you in the general vicinity. Also, don't forget that this time last year I created a set of 30 companion plant videos as well to plant alongside your David Austin roses. Now if you're like me and your rose collection is your star and it's really what you want to sing in the garden, but you also don't want to leave your garden looking dull and uninteresting through the rest of the months, 30 particular individual cottage garden plants which I have here at North Lodge, which I plant alongside roses, everything from hellebores to bulbs to foxgloves. There are 30 of those for you to watch as well, so do take a look. Thank you for joining me in this best of selection. There is one more of these to come this particular summer, which is the best for producing hips. Now there will be no prizes that this little one on the end here will make it into that list, but do look out for that video very soon. I'm Gardener Ben, and thank you very much for joining me here at North Lodge. I will see you all again very soon.